Can your spousal sponsorship application be denied by IRCC? Today we're talking about this topic, and today with me I have Cory Weber, our lead consultant at Weber Immigration, and my name is Elena Weber. I'm also RCIC and owner of Weber Immigration. All right, Cory, so tell me, the question that everybody asks, can spousal sponsorship be denied?
The straight answer is yes, of course. With IRCC, and the government of Canada, any application could be denied. That's the reality of immigration is if you're missing something or if there's some problems, of course, they could turn around and just refuse you outright. So generally speaking, with sponsorships, of course, for various reasons, it could just happen that quickly. Like, yes, a refusal, right? Um,
Yeah,
Go ahead. I can
absolutely.
see
I
you.
think it's just because people think that if you are married to a Canadian or common law of a permanent
Yeah.
resident or Canadian, of course, people may think that it's a more or less, so to speak, guaranteed, right?
Yeah, I get that point, but nothing is guaranteed. So, imagine, yes, great, you're married to a Canadian, everything's great, you submit your application, but you forgot a police certificate, or for various reasons, you forgot your passport scan. Of course, right away, RCC is going to turn around and say, refused. You're missing documentation, refused. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, generally speaking, with sponsorships, if it comes into more of the like proof of the relationship stuff, and if there are questions around that, there could be an interview. And then after the interview, of course, if you don't do well during the interview, yeah, you could still face a refusal. So there's basically two kinds of ways to be refused. Number one would be that straight out, I forgot my whatever important document, and you're absolutely just refused right off the bat. Number two, you go through the interview process, you go through, for whatever reason they had questions about the relationship, and then you're refused anyway because you didn't respond. Perhaps you didn't have the information, or you got flustered during the interview, or you weren't prepared to answer the questions about your partner, and then there could be a refusal that way too. So of course it's IRCC, they can refuse anybody.
Okay, so let's get it straight. What is the difference between application being returned as incomplete
Yeah.
and application being like actually refused? So what's the difference between those?
Yeah. So the incomplete, that's what the ones we're talking about, which it is a refusal of sorts, but it's your application is being returned to you because you forgot that passport or that police certificate or other important documents, right? And right away they just say, your application is not complete, so here you go, try again, right? It's a different thing when you've been refused, right? Whether or not it's after an interview or whenever the timing is, that's because of the actual substance of the application and there's something wrong, right? Whether it's like you went through that interview process and then you didn't perform well, and then your application, unfortunately, we have to refuse you. We don't believe your relationship is genuine, right? So those are two different kinds of, yeah, good point to make a distinction about those two different things.
So when the application is returned as incomplete, what are the common reasons why it can get returned as incomplete?
Yeah, so we already kind of pointed to a couple things, but basically those would be the documents are not there, right? You've forgotten something super important.
Or maybe the documents are there, it's just they're not being in the correct form or shape. So for example, one
Sure.
of the things that I came across a lot was police certificates. So even
Yeah.
though people attach police certificate, but because police certificate is not following the specific requirements of
Yeah, for
IRCC when
sure.
it comes to the timelines or to what that what that police certificate should look like, which institution should be taken from, right?
Yeah,
Because there are local police certificates, there are police
exactly.
certificates like that are more federal. For some countries, that makes a huge difference. For some countries, it's also police certificates. Like for example, Italy, they have to provide 3 police certificates from different institutions, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And so there are like different in Chile or Peru. There are 2, I believe, police certificates. Also, very
Au-
common country to get.
Australia too. They have a weird.
Australia,
You have to
yes.
provide your driving history. Actually, if you lived in certain provinces of
Yeah.
Australia or states, you have to provide your driving history too. So,
Yeah.
the important thing is to go on the Government of Canada website, type in how to get a PCC, a police certificate, and follow the instructions that they provide. Because yeah, absolutely, we've seen it all the time. People providing wrong ones, missing ones, incorrect, or like in part, like not the whole thing. Like you said, like you need 3 or 4 here. So yeah, it's very important to follow their instructions and do it right, because even some of them, you can't provide it up front. You have to provide it after you apply. For certain countries like
Yep.
Mexico and um, what other country was that I just found out about? I forget. But lots of countries are like you apply first and then they will request it of you, right?
Yes. So those can be like one of the reasons why application is returned as incomplete. But basically, the premise is that if application returned is incomplete, that the government is going to just return it like it never happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then if you want to reapply, which most people do, you would just fix your mistakes and make sure it's correct and reapply.
Exactly.
A lot of people come to us after applications being returned, saying like, "Hey, it's been returned. Like now this time, I just don't want to waste all of these months of waiting just for
Hmm.
the government to tell me it's returned," and then they would ask us to fix it, and then we reapply. So that's one thing. Now the refusal, as you said, like the substance of application was something off about that. So either proof of relationship or whatever the case is, the
Yeah.
refusal is more serious though. So what do you see applications are getting like actually refused for in terms of
Hmm.
substance of application?
So generally speaking, it will come down to that proof of the relationship, those factors. So imagine if you just there's various reasons. Like if you're not proving the genuineness. That's the whole point of the application. Prove you're in a true, genuine, loving relationship, right? So you need to, just putting a marriage certificate there and like a couple other documents is not good enough. You need to provide, everything that really goes to prove that interconnected relationship, right? So basically if you're weak in your documents, if you're weak in your proof of the shared expenses and the photographs and all these different kinds of things that should show you in that true genuine relationship that is just not up to their standards of IRCC, of course they could request an interview, and then if that happens, you should be prepared to answer their questions. They really will grill you during this interview process, and if you're not able to answer the questions, they'll get into like all the questions about your relationship and your partner, and in specifics, details like what's his brother's name and what does he do for work and which city does he work in, and how old is his parents. All these kind of detailed questions they will ask you, and then if you're flustered or you don't know the answers and you can't give your story, there could be a refusal that way. So um that's a common one. Also, sometimes, if there are those differences in relationships. So, for example, large age differences, different backgrounds, like different cultures, or if you're even from one culture that they expect you to have some sort of religious ceremony and you didn't do it, and then if you never explained all of these things, that could be a red flag for them, and they might come back and say, "Hey, that's questionable. We're refusing your application. We do not believe you're in a true, genuine relationship." Those kinds of things can happen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I want to point out that not every refusal would come like for as a result of interview. Like
Not
they
all,
don't,
yeah.
yeah, they don't actually have to request an interview.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like it would be great if everybody was given an opportunity to be in an interview, but it's not always like that. Sometimes
Yeah,
the government doesn't really even give you that opportunity to go on an interview.
for
Um,
sure.
and sometimes there are also written requests. So I've had previously requests for more photos, more pictures,
Yeah.
and usually those ones have to something to do with specific like religious or customary like ceremonies that the government
Hmm.
IRCC really needs to see pictures of, and they don't tell you like show me that and this. You have to almost like guess, okay, what do they
Yeah.
have to
What's
see?
missing? Why are they requesting this specific thing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, another question. So, this is a refusal with regards to like proof of relationship. Are there any refusals that you've seen that come as a result of some specific issues with a sponsor? So,
Sure.
refusal
Yeah.
to sponsor as a sponsor.
Yeah, I mean anything can happen, of course, and they will look at like all the sponsors, eligibility requirements, right? Making sure that the person hasn't sponsored someone in the past, year. You can't sponsor people just every year, right? So that's kind of something like that. Or if the sponsor, for example, you don't have to show proof of funds, but you have to prove you can support the person that you're sponsoring. So, for example, if you just didn't provide enough evidence that you can do so, right? You need to do that, and if you didn't, of course, the sponsor can be, you're not eligible to sponsor someone. You didn't prove that you can take care of that person or financially. So, you know, those are a kind of two, like there's not too much that they look at in terms of the sponsor, because the main focus of the application is on that principal applicant, of course, but the sponsor still needs to meet all those eligibility requirements too, right? So those are a couple things that could happen. Or if the sponsor had some criminal background and they didn't mention anything, about that, of course, they're going to be looking into that. And if they see any of those things, for sure, there could be a refusal based on the sponsor's eligibility factors.
Yeah, and there are like also straightforward eligibility factors that are more sort of like pass fail tests. So, for example,
Yeah.
are you on social assistance? Like, there is no really
Yes.
much room for discussion here because it's either you are or you're not, right?
Exactly.
And so, being on social assistance, if you are and you're thinking about sponsoring, then you should know before launching that application that you're just not eligible. It's just
Exactly.
not going to happen, right?
Or if,
So.
yeah, another one we actually had recently was someone who was in an undeclared, or going through a bankruptcy, basically, as a
Oh, yes.
sponsor, was going through a bankruptcy. And we actually had to wait till the whole thing was sorted out before they could continue with the sponsorship, because you can't be going through that and sponsoring someone at the same time as well. So, yeah, little things like that, which are just like automatic, don't even try to, do the sponsorship. You will be rejected for those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and the last question is, so what is the success rate of spousal sponsorship applications in Canada?
Yeah, so technically, I mean, they don't give you a number on the IRCC page, but I think we confidently say above 90% success rate for both like common law and married couples as well. I think probably there was a little bit higher success rate for those married couples because you have the marriage certificate, and it's less burden on you to prove that common law relationship. So with a common law relationship, we might see a little bit higher, slightly ticked up refusal rate, just because people often struggle with that, proving that 12 months of relationship, right? And if you don't do a good job, not just, you can't just submit the common law declaration and say I'm a common law. You have to have the documents that back it up. So the success rate is very high for sponsorships. Generally speaking, people are doing it for the right reasons. They're trying to reunite with their loved ones who they've married, or they are in a legitimate relationship, and lots of Canadians are getting married all the time, right? To various, like, we have a very mixed culture in Canada, so it's a common thing that two people meet in high school or whatever it might be, and then later on down the road, someone's sponsoring someone else. So yeah, it's a high success rate. Canada does put a high value on this type of immigration application. They really do have a focus on reuniting families. So that's why we see such a good, high, nice success rate.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to add that the reason why married couples experience higher success rate than common law couples is not because there is any sort of prejudice, is because
No.
simply it's common law. It just requires more documentation to prove, and people just not very good usually with that. So,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Because
just the standard is higher for documents. Yeah.
it is higher, and because it is like it's proving that you've lived together for those 12 months. A lot of common law couples forget that you need to have like a document or point to something that says, you started living at this date, and here's 12 months later, here's another document proving that timeline of 12 months. And sometimes people forget that, and that's an important one. But that's probably we would see a little bit reason for a little bit higher refusal rate there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. And guys, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. If you have any questions, please comment down below and we will hope to get back to you and answer your questions. And all the contact details you can see in the description if you ever need to email us and say hi. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you in our next video.